It's been a wild couple of days around the NBA with trade things heating up around the NBA with De'Aaron Fox going to the San Antonio Spurs, a player like Zach LaVine, going to the Kings and the fan base and the trade that got made there. Of course, Luka Doncic in that trade really shook the NBA landscape. But what I want to talk about today is how it seems like these front offices and the Bulls and the Sacramento Kings are really losing sight and kind of getting in their own way of having success with their franchises. We're going to talk about it all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And I want to start off talking about the Dallas Mavericks, right? And specifically their GM and Nico Harrison. And this is a situation in which it feels like to me, and I get it, I usually come here to NBA Central and I have these topics. I talk about things around the league. I talk about all of that. But on today's episode, let me be a fan a little bit and just kind of, in a way, fan out. Still respectively, but let me fan out for a second, right? Nico Harrison came out and had a press conference after the trade of Luka Doncic and kind of explained the thought process behind it, right? The fact that he thinks defense wins championships. That's why he felt comfortable going for Anthony Davis and getting that. Even kind of explaining how the deal went down a little bit. And his comments has really turned off that fan base quite a bit, right? And I get it that as somebody running a franchise, you are beholden a little bit to the fans, right? Meaning that those are the ones that pay the ticket prices. Those are the ones that make your franchise successful. And it seems like Nico Harrison, in kind of a way, put himself before the valuation of the franchise. Now, he did say, hey, it's up to me to make the tough decisions. He made a tough decision. And to a degree, I appreciate him standing by the decision and not trying to sell it as something that it's not. This is him doing something he truly felt was best for the franchise, him saying that defense wins championships. And to a degree, as a basketball fan, I am excited to see what Anthony Davis looks like having two defensive bigs and Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, that either one could be out there with any time when Derek Lively gets back healthy, of course, and what that could look like. You're adding Anthony Davis, who, despite being, over 30, he still is a defensive presence when he's healthy. All NBA team, all defensive first teams, all those things are still true, right? And those are things that you can definitely look at and say that, like, AD is not a terrible player. And I said it as well over on Locked On NBA, where I'm over there 5 days a week, that I wouldn't be surprised if the Dallas Mavericks are better initially with this trade than the Lakers are, but the long term, the Lakers are probably going to win the war, right? And now your fan base has to look at you moving things on. But I think in the explanation and the way that he went about it, it really kind of was a slap in the face of those fans with the Dallas Mavericks. And that's what these franchises have to understand. And somebody like Nico Harrison, that seems like, again, I'm saying seems like, Mav fans, please tell me how you feel, seem like they're getting in the way of putting their own self above the in front of the franchise. I mean, you gotta raise some questions there, right? The logic behind it, the move, like, yes, Luka Doncic reportedly 260 pounds at the beginning of the season. There's some doubts about his conditioning. There's also conspiracy theory about a move, which we're going to talk about, but like his conditioning, the injuries, is that catching up with him? All those type of things. Those are all valid. I want to make no mistake about it, right? But it's the way that you communicate it. And don't get me wrong, like $340-something million to give somebody, right, that Luka could potentially miss out on with this trade being there. If you didn't want to attach that, that's fine, right? There's some degree that people will try to understand that, but I think it's this as well. When you look at the fact that now you're hearing rumblings in the background, right, that the Dallas Mavericks, who are no longer majority owned by Mark Cuban, he's not the majority owner there anymore, that this ownership group could be looking to move the team eventually, that's going to raise more questions. When you have people showing up with caskets to your arena, that shows what Luka meant to this fan base. And if you're going to move on from Luka, I think that a better explanation is due to a degree, right? And like I said, you only owe explanation so much. I do think that as somebody running a franchise, you have to do what you feel is best for the franchise. And if it works, you got to hope that the fans are going to come on board, even if there's some initial, misunderstanding or not being all in on it. I can understand that, right? But when you look at this GM and Nico Harrison, like, I don't think, like, yeah, you pulled off one of the most, if not the most surprising trades in sports history, but at what cost? What are you going to get out of it, right? I would almost rather it be like, oh, well, we're going to tear everything down. But then they can't do that because then reportedly you have this rumor going on that they could be looking to move to Vegas or another city eventually. So it's like, yeah, you don't want to pay big money, but at the same time, you still want to put something a little bit competitive out. But trying to sell a fan base on a championship level team is difficult in of itself, especially before you actually see it. But when you give up a beloved player like Luka Doncic, it raises some huge concerns when it comes down to it, right? So not only was Luka surprised, reportedly Bron surprised, all these teams were surprised by this deal going on and all these pieces of it. You now have to ask yourself, at what cost? Can you win those fans back over? And if you do plan on moving on and moving to a different city, of course, you still, if it's 3 or 4 years down the road, you still need those fans to show up to games, right? You still need them to pay ticket prices. So it's all that type of thing, man. But to hear that they felt like Luka Doncic was going to go down a Joel Embiid type path, right? I understand those concerns. And I think most people can understand those concerns for sure. But you got some big questions on, is this going to be executed in the right way? And Nico Harrison just seems like, I don't know. I'm not a Dallas Mavericks fan. I'm an NBA fan and a Bulls fan, as you can see. But it definitely is some questions that need to be risen about that, at least in my opinion. But that leads me to my franchise in the Chicago Bulls, who completed a trade that last night and moving on from Zach LaVine. And in that deal, they got the rights back to their own pick, which they sent to the Spurs in a trade for DeMar DeRozan. You're sending Zach LaVine to the Kings to team up with DeMar DeRozan, who he last did in a Bulls uniform. You got Kevin Huerter. You got other pieces back as well in Trey Jones and Zach Collins and your own first round pick. But you send out a second round pick, and it keeps going to the mismanagement of assets. And that's what we're talking about, right? This Bulls fan base, this Bulls front office that initially came into Chicago and had so much kind of attention around them and excitement back around the fan base. And AK We Trust, which Arturas Karnisovas is the name of the Bulls GM, that was the moniker that was going around. And that slowly turned over years to, not only do we not trust AK, we don't know what the hell you're doing. And it's another kind of show of by example, that this team, this front office, really doesn't understand how to manage assets. And the thing that's so kind of comical about this is that when the Bulls' new front office came in, they preached that they wanted to build organically over time through the draft, and they wanted to do it right. Less than 6 months after making that statement, after taking over the job, they traded most of their young pieces and some picks for Nikola Vucevic. At that time, a player that was right at 30 years old. You then in the offseason went and got Lonzo, who was pretty young at that time, but you also got DeMar DeRozan, a player over 30 that was, had, of course, still one of the better scorers in the NBA, but you had to play in a very particular way. And over the course of the next 4 years after that, after giving up 3 first-round picks for Nikola Vucevic, 1 first-round pick for DeMar DeRozan, a second-round pick for Lonzo Ball, you now have turned around and DeMar's gone, Alex Caruso's gone, Andre Drummond's gone, Zach LaVine's now gone. And out of those players, all you got is your first-round pick back that you sent out. You got a second-round pick from Sacramento in the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade, and you got spicy Denzel Valentine, Chris Duarte back. That's what you got to show for moving off. Oh, and Josh Giddey. That's what you have to show for moving off of this core that you rushed to build. Now, there is something to say about course correcting and getting back on the path of focusing more towards youth and building organically over time, which is now a commitment to basically being bad for the next few years. Cool, great, that's awesome. But you took 4 years, a detour, 4 years, and multiple first-round picks given up to just wind up right back where you started. And that's how you lose the faith of a fan base. Everything that you do is not going to be successful. But in picking a path, you have to stick to the path and do everything that it's needed and it takes to make that path successful. And that's where the Chicago Bulls have continually failed at. So it's funny that we saw a trade that is still worse in the Dallas Mavericks sending, that's completely shocking, and sending a young MVP caliber player to a Los Angeles Lakers team that was just hoping for somebody to bail them out. And then you turn around and see a front office like the Chicago Bulls make an equally bad trade. And make no mistake about it, this De'Aaron Fox trade isn't great for the Kings either. Yes, you get Zach LaVine back. You get 3 first-round picks, one of which isn't going to convey, the 2 other which aren't really going to be great picks, and 3 second-round picks. Now, the talent in Zach LaVine is still a talent. You still got the second best player in this trade while sending out the best player in the trade. So cool there. But where's that? The Sacramento Kings have now made themselves Chicago Bulls West. It based off what the team was, what the Bulls had before. Vooch, Sabonis. DeMar DeRozan. LaVine. Moses Moody. Kobe White, right? Is that what you're looking at? Murray. Patrick Williams, better though, right? So they made themselves a better version of what the Bulls are trying to build. Now, you do have more assets now because the Bulls gave up so many assets to build that version of the team, but that fan base is still questioning now after giving up their homegrown talent that the Kings don't have a lot of because they don't go out. They've never really been a free agent destination. Now, where's that going on, right? You have 3 front offices that over the course of 2 days have made trades that their fan base is wondering what the hell is going on. And that's how you start losing things. And things aren't done yet. The NBA is not done yet. The trade deadline is not done yet. There's still other and more ample opportunities for other franchises to make dumbass decisions. And it seems like whether it's the luxury tax, whether it's the second tax apron, or whether it's just not understanding how to manage your assets, continues to bite certain teams in the ass. And if you're a fan of one of these franchises and you see your franchise just kind of throw things away, hey man, it's gonna be hard times for some of these teams going around here. That just is what it is. It's good that DeMar DeRozan is excited about reuniting with Zach LaVine. Cool. Maybe they can have more success there. Maybe they have better coaching there, all those type of things. But as it stands right now, there are definitely some questions. And while the trade deadline brings clarity and excitement for basketball fans, because I tell you what, the Spurs got it right. You now have paired De'Aaron Fox with Wemby. And that's going to be so great. That is such a great trade for that team and the place that franchise is at and where they're trying to go to. Yes, they jump-started their rebuild a little bit, but they did so without really giving up their they didn't give up any of the Atlanta picks. That's surprising because they still kept their flexibility to add more young players to this core, and they kept Castle on top of all of that. They made a smart trade. So now you got to see where everything else is going to shake out and where that's going to be, but that's what the trade deadline's for. Reportedly as well, before we get out of here, the Warriors have called off any pursuit of Jimmy Butler, which now takes another team off the board that could pursue Jimmy Butler. But the Phoenix Suns reportedly in that are still being very aggressive right now at trying to obtain Jimmy Butler, which is still so difficult for them with having the Bradley Beal, the one player that they can match their second tax apron team, and the one player that they can match that is still not happening, right? So it's a lot going on right now, man. And ultimately, like, this trade deadline has already been crazy. The Luka trade alone made this one of the craziest NBA trade deadlines ever. It just did. Just that move alone made this such a deal that you're looking at and you're wondering what is going to happen next, right? But when you look at the bad decisions by franchises, the mishandling of Zach LaVine, the mishandling of their assets led to Zach LaVine being moved for basically just your own pick back. The handling of the Mike Brown firing kind of put the Kings in the path to move on from De'Aaron Fox, which was kind of already rumored to happen. Luka Doncic and the Wade and whatever's going on there led to him going to the Los Angeles Lakers. And so that's where we're sitting at right now, man. This is a crazy time in the NBA. And yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just see what's going to come out on the top other than this, but this has been a wild trade deal, a wild season overall when you look at some of the teams that aren't quite doing what we thought that they would do, right? As far as in their wins or whatever else. But this is crazy. This is crazy. But now, hey, the Lakers got to try to figure out how to build something meaningful around Luka and LeBron. And I tell you what, having the talent there, it makes you hopeful, and it's something long term as well. When it comes down to it. But LeBron is, if he's truly committed to staying there and seeing this out, maybe he can get Luka. Right? Maybe he can take Luka under his wing and show why he works so hard in the offseason, why he puts so much time and attention and money into his body to stay right. Because we saw it, I think, last year as the Dallas Mavericks season went on, you saw Luka kind of wear down, right? So he needs to get that conditioning right. But the Lakers now, they still got JJ Redick, and it seems like they realize, hey, this job's not done here. You got Luka, great. And you're going to have players that want to come to LA to play with your talent and to just play in LA because of the allure of the city. But now what do you do next to kind of seal that all home? That's the question here. That's the thought process. I guess we'll see what these teams got planned. Let me know what you guys think down below if you're on the YouTube side. What other deals do you see or want to see happening between now and the trade deadline? How do you feel about the direction of the franchises like the Mavericks and the Bulls and the decisions that they've made over the last couple of years? What's the hype that you see here for Wemby and De'Aaron Fox? Let me know all that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799, or the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.